My name is Amir Daniels, and this is my multimodal project for literature, health, and wellness. Today I will be discussing the novel Night by Elie Wiesel, and I will describe the literary techniques he used as well as stylistic choices employed to make Night not only a compelling creative narrative, personal narrative, but a compelling story as well. So, the quote I'd like to start with is from the prologue. I was afraid. My father no longer felt the club blows. I did. And yet, I did not react. I let the SS beat my father. I left him alone in the clutches of death. Worse, I was angry with him for having been noisy, for having cried, for having provoked the wrath of the SS. I think this line is great because it works on a number of levels. I think one, the sheer honesty of the moment, the ability to say something that you really wouldn't think is the go-to reaction, seeing your father getting beaten, but it's such a human moment. Him describing being angry is it makes the story really real, and you can kind of feel for him, and that's just the prologue, and I really like that example. The next example I'll go to is on page 10. It's, well, what did we tell you? You wouldn't believe us. There they are, your Germans. What do you say now? Where's their famous cruelty? And this line is really impactful, one, because we as the readers know what's going to happen, but two, retrospection, Wiesel knows what happens too, and this moment is one of foreshadowing, and you as the reader know what's happening next is inevitable, and this line is just great at giving you a taste of what's to come. The next quote I'm going to read is, Zipporah was holding Mother's hand. I saw them walking, farther and farther away. Mother was stroking my sister's blonde hair, as if to protect her. And I walked on with my father, with the men. I didn't know that this was the moment in time, and the place where I was leaving my mother in Zipporah forever. One, the emotional resonance of that line is very powerful. You read it and it's impactful, and Wiesel in this moment, I feel like he was very understated in just how emotional of a moment this was, and partially because he didn't know that at the time, but even then he could have, after the fact, made this moment out to be way more dramatized than it is, and the way he addresses it, the next line is, and then we kept going, and you don't, it's just a great way of not giving too much to the reader, giving them just enough. So the next line I'm gonna break down is, he was pale, but seemed more solemn than frightened. His manacled hands did not tremble. His eyes were coolly assessing the hundreds of SS guards, the thousands of prisoners surrounding him. And skip ahead further down on the page. Then the entire camp, block after block, filed past the hanged boy and stared at his extinguished eyes, the tongue hanging from his gaping mouth. The capos forced everyone to look at him squarely in the face. One, the diction of Wiesel here, the imagery, he was pale but seemed more solemn than frightened. His manacled hands did not tremble. He coolly assessed the guards. The word choice he's giving is painting the picture of someone who's resolved to death, resolved to their fate. Like, death is no longer the worst thing this boy is facing, and this the moment where they have to walk by and they see his face, and the imagery of the tongue hanging out and his life extinguishes, a very, very vivid image that he paints. The next line I'll discuss is from page 63. They often displayed greater cruelty than their elders. I once saw them. A boy of 13 beat his father for not making his bed properly. As the old man wept quietly, the boy was yelling, "If you don't stop crying, I will no longer bring you bread. Understood?" This moment works to... It serves the purpose of almost a validating claim. It's not a claim, but this moment is something very real, and unless you were there and you experienced it, you wouldn't think of this dynamic and the chaos of the situation. This is and I think the imagery, once again, it paints of a young boy and this broken down father who's just crying, and his fate is essentially being held in the balance by his young son. Just a very poignant moment. But once again, this story works on a number of levels, whether it be the validating details Wiesel uses to add validity and integrity to his statements and really immerse you in the story, whether it be wisdom claims he makes that serve a similar effect, Wiesel's use of retrospection and its inherent weight, and the way he addresses the past is one that I think it really works to the benefit of the story. He doesn't tell you everything that happens, but you know enough to where he allows you to retrospect on this just as he experienced it through the lens he's writing it in. So I think he did a very good job in that way. And he wrote it in a very honest way, in a story that only he could tell and only his heart could sing. And this book had so many emotionally resonant moments that I went through with the quotes, but there were a number of others, and that, amongst many other reasons, is why this book stood out to me amongst all the books we read this semester. Thank you for your time, and have a great day.